This is Brad Coons. I'm picking up dinner, and my wife's putting the boys to bed. Boom.
Yeah, it's Prezi. Perfect. Yeah. I know we taking a dub, cause I've been dying to win. We champions. We champions. Eyes on the prize, cause I know that it is mine to win. We champions. We champions.
Okay, guys, so my wife is putting the boys to bed right now, and it is Wrestling Wednesday. Okay, this is our first Wrestling Wednesday. We'll see how this goes. Nobody knows. There are some really good YouTubers out there talking wrestling right now. And so today, what I want to tackle is a couple months ago, Goldberg beat the Fiend. And there were a lot of people that had issues with it. And there are a lot of people that never really got what they wanted out of Goldberg beating the Fiend, taking the belt off of him. And I have a theory that if they would have put in place, or they could still put in place, it could have saved everything. Okay? So first off, I must say that I am my two favorite wrestlers are The Undertaker and Hulk Hogan. And they always have been. I was a Hulkamaniac growing up. If you heard my testimony on Testimony Tuesday, Hulk Hogan is a part of how I became a Christian, okay? So the thing that you got to understand first off is I'm the biggest mark there is, all right? So what I would have said, and I would have tied the spirit of the Fiend back to the spirit in the urn that the Undertaker used to draw power from. Back in 1994, the Undertaker wrestled Yokozuna at the Royal Rumble, and Yokozuna let something out of the urn. And how I would have played this is that I would have said the spirit of the urn is the Fiend, and that's where the spirit came from. That's where it explains where he comes from. And the reason it explains why he lost that match is because the Undertaker was in the building. And because the Undertaker was in the building, the Fiend, even though it was the Fiend mask out there, it was just Bray Wyatt out there wrestling, and that's why Goldberg could beat him and take the title off of him. And so there's a lot of things that could have been done through this, as to where the spirit of the Fiend has been all this time after it left the Undertaker's urn. There are other wrestlers you could have tied it into that this spirit took them over, and now that's not where we're at. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my wrestling expert. He is the greatest promoter that has never booked a wrestling event in the world in history. Matt Kee. Okay, the thing to understand about Matt, he's been my defensive coordinator. He was my defensive coordinator at Plano for 6 years. We've been friends since I moved to Plano back in 2010. And he coached with me this year at Plainfield East. He is the one that always helps me figure out what I truly think about what's going on in wrestling. And so he usually takes what I say and makes me feel dumb about it. And then I see his side of things. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Matt. Matt, what do you think of this theory? And how should the Goldberg winning the title from Bray Wyatt be handled?
So, I've been asked by my good friend, Brad Coons, to help him out on this YouTube channel. Never really done anything like this before. Just like him, also looking for a little creative outlet. So, let's talk a little wrestling, shall we? Brad and I have talked about wrestling for a lot of years, and as he told you just a second ago, he is an Undertaker mark. Well, I also am marked for wrestling. I love it. It is my escape from the everyday. So we talk about it a lot, and my mind is always running about what's going to happen next. It's kind of like my soap opera. I tell my wife that all the time. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about the Fiend. I remember when the first Firefly Funhouse came on. I loved it. I think that you can tell that there's some guys that have a lot to do with it. Bruce Pritchard, I don't know if you guys listen to his podcast, but most of the Conrad Thompson podcasts are fun. If you enjoy wrestling, a lot of them go back to the 90s and the early 2000s when wrestling was pretty cool. I actually think the product right now is not terrible. If you sit down and watch it, is getting better again. I think they were really moving forward with a lot of things, and then this quarantine hit, and now I'm on YouTube because of the quarantine, pretty much. So, I think his idea with the earned could have worked. I tell him that all the time. I don't think they ever would have done it, because I think that if you take and make the Fiend part of the Undertaker, you take something away from Bray Wyatt. And I don't think you want to do that. I would keep Undertaker and Bray Wyatt as far away from each other as I possibly could. I think they found something at WrestleMania with the Undertaker and making this cinematic thing. And people were confused by the Funhouse and the Bray Wyatt Funhouse with John Cena. I thought it was good. My wife, who is who likes wrestling, probably doesn't love it. Thought that was the best part of the show. I mean, she laughed all the way through it and she enjoyed it. You had to understand what the Funhouse was. I don't think that I would necessarily use the Fiend as something that comes from the earned or some power of the Undertaker. The Undertaker has maybe 3 or 4 matches left, and they're probably going to be the cinematic kind you just saw against AJ Styles at WrestleMania. I think it's the best thing for him. He looked good. He looked tough. You could probably get him in the ring for a match now. I think people are over the Undertaker as this person that used the urn, but he's given me this urn idea many times. I think that the Fiend gets his power from the red light, and I've told Brad this anytime that he's lost, the red light hasn't been on. So, for those of you that may not know a lot, when the Fiend first started, the whole arena goes into a red glow when he would wrestle, and everybody hated it. I actually liked it because it was different. All these people that get on the internet and complain about the product, well, they do this, it's always the same, and then they do something different, and they complain about that too. I think the power of the Fiend comes from the red light, and that's what I would do this week at the pay-per-view. They have a match, Braun Strowman and the Fiend. I would start the match without the red light, and then have something where that red light came on. And when the red light came on, the Fiend can't be hurt. So that's kind of how they did the Daniel Bryan story. It's kind of how they did the Seth Rollins story. It's how I would go with the Fiend. I just don't think that they need to put the Fiend in things that are going to get him over. And I think that if you put him in a storyline with The Undertaker, Bradley, it doesn't put the Fiend over. And the Fiend is one of the hottest things they have going. I'm just so disappointed in the quarantine thing, because a lot of guys that were getting ready to get taken off and do well can't be there. Kevin Owens is right there. We haven't seen a lot of Finn Balor because they can't get there. And I think this has really hurt the creative of the WWE. So, big pay-per-view this weekend. Big match for The Fiend. I think climbing the corporate ladder could be very interesting. Hope that they don't. I heard they're going to do the boys or the men's and the girls match at the same time. Very interesting. They're going to have to get from the bottom of the place to the top of the place. I'm going to really enjoy it. And I'm sure that Mr. Coons and I will be texting about it. So, thanks for this opportunity. Get my creative wrestling on early in the morning before the kids get up, because we're about to do some remote learning. All right. Thanks, Brad.
All right, Matt, thank you so much for coming on. I agree with a lot of the points that he had about The Fiend and putting him over. As the Undertaker being, the guy that I grew up with, and the wrestler that kind of, Hulk Hogan got me into the wrestling. Undertaker put me over the top and locked me in, So I think that I kind of look at it more as a way to pass the torch of the Undertaker, allow for the Undertaker to come back after he's retired and have a function, and it's not necessarily that, the Fiend is part of the Undertaker. It's more that the Fiend chose Bray Wyatt instead of sticking with the Undertaker or going back to the Undertaker. So it's kind of a salute to Bray Wyatt, that is, a passing of the torch, so to speak. So I too am excited about Money in the Bank. Should be fun. Should be a great Sunday afternoon to get your mind off things. Like Matt said, wrestling to me, how many people besides us wrestling fans, their favorite TV show has been on every week without a week off since they were in high school? I had a good group of friends in high school that would get together. Chris Tucker, Richie Mix, miss you guys. We used to have some good times drinking a whole bunch of ski. Okay, that's a Southern Illinois soda, just so you know, ski. Check it out online, My Ski Soda, or Ski Citrus Soda, I think. But anyway, we used to eat a bunch of Doritos and sit there, watch wrestling, watch Raw Monday nights. It was right in the middle of the Monday Night War. It was an awesome time, and the same show's still on. All right, I didn't watch Grey's Anatomy when that started out. If I watched Grey's Anatomy at the beginning, I'd still be watching it now, knowing that it's gone through so many changes and stuff. So, like Matt said too, the quarantine definitely changes things, but it's kind of interesting how wrestling was able to persevere through it and doing all they could to keep their athletes out of danger. They have continued on making their live shows, not missing a week even through this. So I have a lot of respect for those guys. And again, if you listen to my story, the Homecoming page yesterday, you find out that I wanted to be a professional wrestler since I was 5. And if you listen to my testimony, Hulk Hogan is one of the first people to lead me to Christ. So with that being said, thank you for joining us on our first Wrestling Wednesday. It was a blast. Our next story time is going to happen on Friday, on Football Friday. Football Friday is going to be awesome. Kevin Maurice from Eastern Washington is going to be on talking about running back play. It's going to be great. And trying to think if there's anything else. The next vote will also be Friday. Okay, so thank you guys for tuning in, and make sure you watch Money in the Bank. Oh, also in the comments below, next week we're going to talk about, there's a tweet going around, name your top 5 wrestlers and then tag 2 people. Well, in the comments below, drop your top 5 wrestlers. Next week on Wednesday, we'll talk about anything from the pay-per-view this weekend, and then Matt and I will discuss our top 5 wrestlers and why they're our top 5 wrestlers. All right, we're not looking for who you think the best wrestlers of all time are. who are your 5 favorite wrestlers. All right? Hopefully catch you guys next week. Again, loving the fact that my wife's putting the boys to bed and it's light outside. It's awesome. All right? Take care, guys. Peace.
Yeah, it's Prezi. Perfect. Yeah. I know we taking a dub, cause I've been dying to win. We champions. Eyes on the prize, cause I know that it is mine to win. We champions. I know we taking a dub, cause I've been dying to win. We champions. Eyes on the prize, cause I know that it is mine to win. We champions. Won so many times, I don't even know what a loss is. 119th Street, y'all know who the boss is. People think they can beat us, well, no offense. Run the routes, all you want, but we